2 years ago yesterday, my mom was no longer able to speak in that process of terminal delirium and the the fall toward death. And I was outside 2 nights ago and noticed that it was really bright. The moonlight was very bright. And I remembered a conversation that I had with a friend who had come, a doctor friend who had come to help my mom die. During that process, we had some conversations out in the meadow, and I remember it was very bright from the moon. And it suddenly occurred to me to ask, what is the relationship between the calendar year and the lunar year? Does does the Were they both fairly full moons? I mean, obviously they were, but is that standard? And it suddenly struck me that I have lived almost 60 years, and it never occurred to me before in my entire life to ask, what is the relationship between the calendar year and the lunar year? And it immediately struck me that probably more or less every 5 or 6 year old on the planet 500 or 800 years ago would have known that relationship off the top of their head. And that reminded me of something that I wrote about in Dreams, where I was quoting Sam Harris saying that people are a lot smarter now than, or people are a lot more educated now than they were 500 years ago, that even the most educated person 500 years ago would be considered an ignoramus today. And I really tore that apart. And what I realized in that tearing apart was that we have gained different forms of knowledge and we have lost different forms of knowledge, such that I can look up online and see that Ulaanbaatar is the capital of Mongolia. And someone 800 years ago who did not live in Ulaanbaatar would have had no clue, presuming Ulaanbaatar was indeed the capital 800 years ago, which I can look up online. And so we have gained. I've never forgotten a line that was kind of funny from Sherlock Holmes, the fictional Sherlock Holmes, obviously, that he didn't know that the earth revolved around the sun. And when Watson said, "Why not?" he said, "Because it doesn't matter to my life." And that is in some ways a strange attitude, but at the same time, we learn more and more about, and I'm not complaining about learning history, about learning the Battle of Hastings, or learning that Gettysburg was July 1 through 3, 1863, or knowing how many casualties there were at the Battle of Waterloo, or knowing the names of the various generals at various places, or knowing, sort of the flow of history. I'm not complaining about knowing that, and I'm not complaining about knowing that the earth revolves around the sun, but I'm saying that there are forms of knowledge that would have been absolutely common 800 years ago that we don't have. Most children in rural areas would have known how to field dress a rabbit. They would have known how to find edible plants. And they would not, on the other hand, have known whether Brad Pitt is married. And so I think that the knowledge that we have ends up being kind of a zero-sum game. I don't think we actually gain knowledge. I think that as individuals, we gain some forms, and we, or at least I, have absolutely no idea. Like when the moon was very bright 2 nights ago when I was outside, it was not a full moon. It was very near, and I couldn't even tell you if it was waxing or waning because I hadn't been outside the night before or the night before that. And so we gain all these knowledge about all these things far away. And can you name that species of tree? Can you name that species of grass? Can you name that jingle on television? Can you identify the theme song from Gilligan's Island? Can you identify that bird song? So we learn more and more about things far away, and we learn less and less about our immediate surroundings.